Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BjjBrick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 206. My name is Byron. I'm here with Gary. Gary, how is your day going, my friend?
You know, it's going great. I'm here for another awesome episode, and today we talk about BJJ as an art form.
Yes, is it? That's the big question, and that's the big conversation. Is it an art? Is it a craft? Is it a science? Where does Jiu-Jitsu fall on the spectrum? And I don't know if we'll have a definitive answer, but it should be a fun conversation as we kind of hash this out and figure out what is BJJ as far as a performance art, or I don't know. I think it's that. It's definitely a sport. It's definitely a martial art, but there are times, at least when I'm rolling, I feel like this is kind of an art right here. This is involving creativity and that sort of thing. But it should be a fun episode, Gary.
Yeah, definitely can't wait to get to that part. And I told Byron when we were off the air that, Byron, did you really know that I was terrible at art in high school? And I dreaded going to it. So I may fail miserably in this episode, but I'll try my hardest.
Yep, and you didn't try that hard in art class, I'm guessing. You just kind of phoned it in.
Yeah, I probably didn't try very hard in a lot of stuff, but I do in Jiu-Jitsu and I do in podcasting. And speaking of podcasting, we have an audio book. It's called Your First Year in BJJ. It's by yours truly, Byron Jabara, not me, yours truly. But it's basically walking you through your first year in Jiu-Jitsu. Our goal with this podcast is to get people to train get more people to train Jiu-Jitsu. And the big thing is a lot of people quit in their first year. And, we want more people training. So definitely check it out. It's 2.5 hours of content. One of the cool chapters about the book is benefits of Jiu-Jitsu. And everybody thinks of the benefits, the tangible benefits that you see each and every day while you're training, the arm bar, the self-defense aspect, putting people to sleep.
Six-pack abs.
Six-pack abs. Well,
that's scary.
They definitely haven't trained with me then. If they think six-pack abs is one of the benefits, but definitely it is a benefit. You are going to lose weight. You are going to lose body fat. You are going to gain strength, and that's the cool stuff about it. We're having fun. We're getting healthy. We're getting stronger. And we're learning a self-defense. So definitely check it out. Like I said, 2.5 hours of content, only $11.99. It's getting great reviews. And I did look online the other day, and right now it's number 3 on the New York Times online audiobook bestseller. So definitely check it out.
About Jiu-Jitsu, produced by a podcast. That's probably, you have to narrow it down to that level.
And made by Byron Jabara.
That's true. This is my number 3. Let's push it to number 1, guys. No, yeah. It is important sometimes to look at Jiu-Jitsu and think, what is it doing for me? What are the benefits? Oftentimes, I think we sign up for one reason: self-defense. It looks fun. Want to work out. It could be any number of things. And very soon after that, it switches while you go. I mean, really. Well, within that first year, your self-defense aspect of Jiu-Jitsu, if you've been concentrating on that, you're able to defend yourself against most attackers. It quickly becomes a fun form of exercise and the social benefits. There's a lot to it. And I think by highlighting those in the audiobook, it really could be a big motivational factor in maintaining your first year trajectory in the right path and finding the right reasons to train.
Byron, what is your favorite benefit?
My favorite benefit is that every week I get to call Gary, harass him a little bit, and talk about Jiu-Jitsu. Other than that, really, I think it's just a fun thing to do. I feel like I'm still getting better every day, which there may be a day when I don't technically get better or physically get better than I was the year before. But it's just a fun way, and I feel like I've hit like a semi-fountain of youth that it's keeping me young, as in being in shape, and is enjoyable. And when I look at the people who are doing fitness and they just dread it, and it's not very enjoyable, I feel sorry for them. Maybe jiu-jitsu is not their thing, but if it's your thing and you're having a good time working out, that's a great situation to be in, and that's what I have. And it's fun because the sport itself is fun, the art is fun, and the people I train with are a lot of fun. Speaking about Gary right there, he's a blast to be around.
Oh, thank you, Byron. Most people, when they say I'm a blast to be around, are talking about my stomach issues, but I really appreciate
it. There you go, Gary. So check that out in the audiobook and figure out what Gary is doing. If you want to figure out what Gary is doing every week, hop on our email list. All we need is your email and I think your name, but you could even send us your secondary email and your alias if you want. But we'll send you out the email with the show notes every week, let you know what's happening on the show and what's happening with Gary and his stomach issues. Just go to Facebook or our website. There'll be a little box in there to fill out, and bada boom, bada bing, on the email list, and it gets sent out weekly.
Byron, I think we should get to the quote of the week. And this week we have a quote not from Pablo Popovich, the well-known Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but Pablo Picasso. And I think this guy is an artist. Would you agree with me, Byron?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know where else to go with that. He is known for his art skills. Or was.
Yep. What basically Pablo says, the purpose of art is washing the dust of daily lives off our souls.
Wow. That sounds deep, Gary.
Yep, and I sure hope you know what it means, because I have no clue.
Well, I did find, I was looking for art quotes, and after reading quotes for, it seemed like too long, I settled on this one. But it does make sense. So he's not talking about art as in, painting or doing anything. He's talking about doing something that is enjoyable, that is taking yourself kind of out of your daily routine and putting it in a place where it is enjoyable. And it could be the purpose
Jiu-Jitsu.
of the purpose of art as in doing an art, or the purpose of art as in observing art and taking part as a spectator. And it could be either one. You could spend time in an art museum, which technically you probably won't find a lot of jiu-jitsu, although in some of the rougher neighborhoods you might see a little bit of grappling. But the purpose of art is washing the dust off the daily life of our souls. So you're cleaning them off. You're helping your soul become dust free, as in just making you feel better. Art is a kind of a pick me up if it's done right. And I think that I don't know much about Pablo Picasso, other than he was an artist. But that was an interesting quote, and kind of just says a lot of people look at art and they really get something out of it. And it's quite enjoyable from the artist's point of view. So if you go and let's just say paint, if you spend an hour or two painting, I'm sure it's similar to spending an hour or two on the mats and you just don't worry about anything else. You just lose yourself in the painting. The beauty of, I guess, painting is you probably do that for hours on end and not become all sweaty and tired and exhausted and a little beat up. I don't know. I'm not that good of a painter. I've never painted for that long. But with just the same thing, you go and you roll for a little while. You're lost in what you're doing. You're not thinking about your bills. You're not thinking about, is this person unhealthy today or sick, or what is work, piling up on me? No, I'm thinking about this person and how to finish my choke. And I think that's part of jiu-jitsu that people really enjoy. It just kind of dusts off the accumulation of debris from our daily life.
Yeah, definitely. Well said, Byron. And when I was reading that, I didn't get it like you did. But, as soon as you started talking about it, it just made me think 100% of jiu-jitsu. That's what jiu-jitsu does for me. It dusts off the daily life off our souls. Washes the dust of the daily life off our souls. You also mentioned art, and you said there's not really, if you go to a museum or, an art park or whatever they are, you don't see jiu-jitsu. But I do want you to know that a lot of those Roman statues, Byron, do have cauliflower ear.
That's true.
I've seen that numerous times. I mean, it could be from wrestling. It could be from jiu-jitsu or judo. Who knows? But I always thought that was pretty cool when I see some of those statues with a cauliflower ear.
Yeah. Further research, I'm on Google here right now, Gary. And looks like a lot of the statues from way back when is actually from no-gi submission grappling EBI rules. And that's
Well, as long as it was EBI rules. Yeah.
so. That's kind of a fun fact. Look at the ears, or if you could just Google, sculptures and cauliflower ear, some stuff's going to pop up, and you're going to see when they want to portray somebody as a warrior or as somebody who had that sort of a lifestyle. A lot of times they give them cauliflower ears, just like Gary.
Oh yeah, my ears are really bad.
So Gary also mentioned Pablo Popovich because the quote was by Pablo Picasso. So I went ahead and hopped on the interwebs and typed in Pablo Popovich quote. And Gary, you're going to love this.
Okay.
The only quote, and I don't actually know, it says quote from Pablo Popovich, and there's a video below, which I have not watched, but I'm assuming he said this. Here's the quote. "Gi is boring. No gi is a better sport and completely different than gi." Pablo Popovich.
No wonder I like him so much.
I don't think Gary thinks gi is boring. He's just so much more in love with that no gi action. And there he goes.
I even turned down a free gi this week.
You did?
That's the type of guy I am.
Well, and you're kind of, you're not real extravagant. I don't know if you're a minimalist, but you don't want a lot of stuff. Is kind of what I'm getting from you. And a free gi. He'd probably take a pair of gi shorts if anybody wants to send him a pair of gi shorts. But a gi, I think you have a gi, and one is
somewhere.
Is what Gary requires, I guess. To
I
maintain.
just need one. Yeah. Yep. No, there's nothing wrong with the gi. I just I'm kind of like Pablo. I like no gi better, but I think gi's is great too, and I don't think I would be where I am if I have not trained in the gi. It's really helped my game.
We're going to have a big possible debate here about whether BJJ is an art or if parts of it are artistic, but we could all assume no gi, no art. We all agree on that, Gary. That's the easy one, right, buddy?
No, I don't agree. I mean, have you seen some of the rash guards? I mean, there's a lot of art to those rash guards. And the spats?
Yeah.
A lot of art.
A lot of art in those rash guard and spats.
Yeah. Yep.
Not to mention the nude-style rash guard that has chest hair and other features.
I do have to tell a story now.
Okay.
So on our BjjBrick page, every now and then we get emails from, well, not every now and then, probably every day we get emails from people and messages, and we'll always message back. And I think we have a very good response from messaging back, well, especially Byron, because I'm napping most of the time. But one day we get one from some guy from didn't really speak English too well, and asking us if we wanted what was it, a rash guard or
he's like, we'll custom make rash guards, gis. I think he was probably from Indonesia or maybe India. I don't remember. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, we were messing with him a little bit, and we asked him to have a naked body rash guard with a hairy chest and large areolas. And we figured we were joking, and nobody would come through with that. He actually made us one, and it was really pretty good.
So what we saw was I think they call it a proof. It's like this is what it looked like. He sent us this. I felt really bad because he spent time making this terrible rash guard. And I can see some people get the weirdest, strangest rash guards. This would be up there with probably the weirdest I've seen.
I don't know if I'd want to roll with somebody with this rash guard.
It's a little intimidating.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not like it's like a typical hairy chest and hairy back. It's like long hair. I mean,
long hair.
It's not actually hair, but it looks like this hair. You can almost braid it. It's so long, the hair you painted on there. And we got that message back. Here's what I did. I'm like, oh man, I feel bad. It's like, sorry, that's not really what we're looking for. Good luck.
Then I felt worse because, actually I didn't feel bad at that time, because then I took another Facebook profile and messaged the guy and asked him if he could build one for me too. So I messed with him a little bit more. But that guy actually does do a pretty good job. Well, so I don't know his name or anything, and so I guess I could give him a plug, but it's not going to do any good.
Yeah, he's just some random. We get hit up to have custom stuff made, and usually it seems like it's a machine that's sending out emails, and that one responded back. So we kind of played a little bit, and
but we really didn't expect him to make one when
No.
we had that crazy of a request, but he did a good job with
you know what, Gary? That guy, he's an artist. He
really is an
created
artist.
that, and he's probably a starving artist looking to get money, trying to get paid, and end up running into a couple idiots like us that asked, to, hey, here's a Rash Guard idea. Really, he could have taken the Rash Guard and sent it somewhere else and sold it, because that thing was cool looking.
The crazy thing is, I saw one like that later on some website, and I didn't realize if, maybe because of us, that now that thing's selling, and who knows, maybe that guy will be on the Sharks, Shark Tank.
He's a multi-hundred-air, probably.
Yeah, I would like to see him on the Shark Tank and see what those guys, how bad they would rip him.
But he used his artistic abilities to create something and try to sell it. He didn't print off a bunch of these. He just made the digital image and sent it to us. But it was definitely required some art and some skill.
Yeah.
And
the bad thing is, I think we had to buy him in minimum of 100, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I feel like I'm taking a risk when I have to order. When I ordered like 100 gi patches, I'm like, man, I hope it could give away 100 gi patches through Patreon.
Can you imagine trying to sell 100 of those?
I think the people that bought those, because it would look like from 15 or 20 feet away, like that dude doesn't have a shirt on, and he looks really hairy and very strange. And I couldn't imagine the same Rash Guard on a woman, but it would also look very strange. And I think the people that got him would love him. Like, this is the craziest thing I've ever had or seen. But most
I think
people
what would be great
no.
is we need to get the guy to buy the naked spats too, and we could have the shirt, the Rash Guard with the spats. And you imagine walking on the mats. That'd be great.
Gary's always going inverted with those things, and all right. Well, I tried once to transition this to an art thing, and not so much. So that guy was an artist. Are we artists, Gary, doing jiu-jitsu?
I really do think we're artists. I don't know how to say it. I'm like I told you earlier, I'm not very good at this, deep thinking kind of stuff. But, I think our individual games, we paint a picture with it. We show our attitude and what type of person we are by how we roll, by our jiu-jitsu style.
Yeah, I looked up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary online. It's a great place to go if you're looking for how to define something.
Do you still have encyclopedias?
They probably do, but they're mostly online. I remember the last one I got was on like a 5 CD set.
Yeah.
But I think Wikipedia killed that industry, basically. But I looked up the definition of the word art. There's 6 of them. The first one, I think, is pretty good. And typically, I don't know how dictionaries work, but I think the first one is a very common one, and if you're reading like the 20th definition, then you're kind of stretching things. But the first one, definition of art, skill acquired by experience, study, or observation. The example that they give is the art of making friends, which is also part of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the benefits if we go back to the first year in BJJ.
Yeah.
Byron, that's another plug.
You are just plugging that audiobook like crazy, Gary.
Yep.
But
I got your back, literally.
Yes, you do, and you're painting a picture.
Have you seen my picture of a wounded cougar?
No. You failed art class, Gary, or at least you struggled in it.
I struggled.
But it's funny that the first definition of art doesn't talk about painting, doesn't talk about clay or any of that stuff. Skill acquired by experience, study, or observation. That's jiu-jitsu. That's pretty easy to say that, yes, jiu-jitsu, you acquire a skill by experience, absolutely. By study, yes. Observation, yes.
But, okay, I don't mean to disagree, but, help me think of the observation part.
Yeah.
I do think you need to study. I do think you need to experience it. But I don't know how I would... Wait, okay, say the definition.
So it says, I could defend observation, but it says or observation, not and observation. but skill acquired by experience, study, or observation. So just
I don't know how good my skill would be just by observing.
Yeah.
I can watch tennis all day long, and I totally would understand the rules. I would, see that people hit forehands and backhands, but I don't think I would be very good at it. I would have to get out there and practice it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if you look at it, but it says or, not an observation. I don't know what art skills you could get by simply observing, but I think that it could be part of your skill acquisition.
I guess
for
bird
jiu-jitsu.
watching.
Bird watching.
Yeah, definitely.
There you go. But I think let's just use all three of these, Gary. Experience, learning jiu-jitsu. So you're on the mat, you're training, you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're gaining experience.
Definitely.
That's definitely the category. Studying. So I have a hard time thinking studying. You could maybe think about jiu-jitsu. Study online. Really pay attention in class.
Audio book.
Audio books.
First year
Gary,
of BJJ.
You're killing it, man.
No, but DVDs. Just books, jiu-jitsu books. I use. I go online when I'm having issues with a certain move or a position, and I'll study from there. And once I get back on the mat and practice it, a lot of times I do troubleshoot and get better at that position. So definitely, that's a
and
game.
I think also maybe the word study could also be kind of similar to drill. I'm not working on. Drilling isn't really giving you a whole lot of experience, but it's really helping you study what you're trying to learn. It's like reading the same thing twice and then reading it again, or learning multiplication tables, like studying those. I think most of it originally is observed. You're sitting there watching your instructor teach something. You're watching a YouTube video. You're audioing an audiobook.
Like your first year in BJJ.
I need to keep a counter going, Gary, on this one. I bet we'll mention it way more times than we actually sell audiobooks. But I just think part of jiu-jitsu is watched, and I could definitely tell times where I actually just watched competition and I've learned something and I've transitioned over to on the mat and I got better just by seeing it, and I was able to. That's going to work in my game, and sure enough, it did. But that's just the first definition, man. Gary, I thought we talked about this earlier. I think this might be a shorter show. If we're going to hammer these definitions out, it'll be a very long show. I'll read a couple other definitions real quick, and we'll move on, unless Gary wants to talk about one or plug the audiobook another time. Definition 2, a branch of learning. And the example is one of the humanities. Definition number 3. Yeah?
Hold on. A branch of learning?
A branch of learning.
So a way to learn would be the audiobook, like your first year of BJJ.
That's true, man.
Yep. Okay.
Number 3, an occupation requiring skill or knowledge. The art of organ building is the example in that one.
Organ building?
Yeah. Like building a heart or a lung or a giant instrument that is kind of like a piano.
Easy work like that. Easy work.
Definition number 4, and I can't believe I'm reading all these definitions.
I can't believe this either.
It's just funny that none of them have talked about what you think of art until we get to definition number 4. The use of skill and creativity, imagination, especially in the production of objects. The art of landscaping and works like that. So that's kind of what it's going. One of the fine arts. It's got a couple examples here, but that's basically... Definition number 4 is when I think of art, I think of painting. I think of Gary's very good work with the charcoal. He's very, very skillful there. But I'm on definition number 4. You say art, I think of a skill in creating something that is, quote, artistic or creative. And and there's a few more, but we don't need to keep hammering out definitions. There is a Merriam-Webster Word of the Day podcast. They talk about words all the time. This is as close as we're going to get to that. And
definitely send in $5, and we will send you a certificate that you have now passed the art class of BjjBrick. It counts as 3 credit hours but you have to know those 4 definitions.
And we are not accredited.
We will certify you. Yep, yeah. We are not accredited. But you'll have a nice, artistic certificate to put on your wall.
Yeah, there we go. And I'll just send you a link to a website where you can print off a certificate.
Yeah, and for every certificate that you buy, we'll give you a free chapter of the first year of BJJ audiobook.
Gary, I'm not going to chunk that thing into chapters we're going to email. I'll just send you the whole book.
Okay,
Boom.
perfect.
Thanks for passing the class, guys.
Yep.
So, thinking about those definitions of art, is BJJ an art?
Oh, no doubt about it. The first one, we already went through it. It's an art. Really, all of them. Creativity. There's one, you talked about creativity. I think that was your third one. And, you think about people always, creating new, positions, new. I don't know if it's really new, because it seems like every time there's a position or somebody thinks they created something, you go back and you see an old judo textbook and there it is there. But stuff that people have forgotten about, people develop their own styles through creativity. You've got some guys like Boogeyman, and he was a what do you call those guys, a break dancer, very creative, coming into jiu-jitsu, and I do think that creativity is a big part of jiu-jitsu.
Gary, when did you start to become creative with your jiu-jitsu? Years-wise or skill-wise, or however you want to say it?
It definitely took years. I had to learn the basics. I didn't create my own style. I just went with what people had taught me. And that's what I needed when I first started. You have to learn the basics. You have to learn, moves, positions, concepts. But once I started getting a little farther in my jiu-jitsu journey, I kind of found what works best for me and, what I like to do and how I like to do it. And, you create your own style, that's based off of you. There's a lot of, moves that aren't necessarily my favorite or whatever. I still know them, but, I've got my own little style, own little moves and pass to get to those moves. And that's kind of my me as an artist in jiu-jitsu.
Was there something that happened on the mat that kind of pushed you into that way? Or was there a move that you really feel that you kind of maybe didn't invent but discovered for yourself, as in maybe you weren't taught that so much, or maybe a combination of moves during this process of it becoming more of an art?
I can't think of a time that it made me like that. And it's kind of strange because I was telling you before we went on air that, I have trouble with art sometimes. I don't get it. I'm not really, my mind doesn't work that way. We talk about art, pictures, and is what I think of art, pictures, paintings, statues. And, for me, my idea of fun is not to go to a museum, art museum. A lot of people like that. And that's what I always thought of art as. But it was kind of strange because, I never liked art class. I was never, a painter, a musician. It just didn't fit with me, any of that stuff. But, and I never thought of art. It never, really came into my head very often. But it seemed like halfway through my, a few years into my jiu-jitsu journey, probably 5-6 years, I started thinking about jiu-jitsu as an art. I started thinking that, man, I'm an artist. I can get on this mat and, paint a picture. I mean, I consider my role in like, maybe how an artist paints a picture. I try to do unique stuff. I try to do fun stuff. I try to do stuff that makes me happy. Kind of like, the purpose of art is washing the dust off the daily life of our souls. But it's kind of strange that, I can't really think of, to answer your question, Byron, a time that, or, a move or sequence or that changed me, but I don't really know when I started feeling it, but, somewhere down the line, I just started thinking of jiu-jitsu as art. What about you?
Yeah, I think the first and most natural, and you'll probably agree with me here, because we've had this topic for a little while, and I've been trying to think about is it an art or not? I think the most natural way for you to kind of get pushed into creativity, even if you don't want it, is to just gain an injury. So if you could just get one of those done to you, and you could still train and you feel okay to train and safe, but you have to avoid something or change your game a little bit. And actually, we have an audiobook, 6 Games for BJJ, and it kind of explains these games.
Wait, that's the wrong audiobook, Byron.
Gary, okay, real quick. If this is the first episode you're listening to of the podcast, normally we plug an audiobook at the beginning and let it hold. Gary's kind of got this little thing going where we're plugging this one over and over again. Typically, we don't plug the audiobook the entire show, but we're going to have fun with this and just rock and roll with it.
Normally, we only do it. When I do it once, I just, little ornery to do.
The show is not a constant commercial for a $11.99 audiobook.
There you go again, Byron. Good one.
But anyway, I think the most natural way to just kind of be forced to adapt and be creative with the jiu-jitsu that you're doing is to get hurt, is to just tweak your leg a little bit or pull something, and suddenly moving the way you used to move doesn't really work for you. You want to change it, and so you keep your fundamentals and you keep doing things the way they're supposed to do, but you just do them a little bit differently for your body. And I think that's the first kind of forced way to say, here, be creative, because your body is saying, I'm not doing that way. That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. If I'm playing, what was your example? Tennis. There's a correct way to swing that tennis rink. A correct way to swing that. Let me try it again. There's a correct way to swing that tennis paddle, and if you don't swing it the right way, technically you're wrong. I'm sure there's a correct way to do an arm bar, but there's a lot of options and creativity and ways to get to that arm bar that would allow for somebody with a messed up tennis elbow to still arm bar somebody. Man, that was a kind of a weird example, Gary.
Yeah, that was a very weird
Where do you
example.
keep your tennis paddles?
Byron, if you don't shut up, you're going to get paddled.
Oh, man, with the tennis racket? You mentioned you don't like to go to the art museum. I've been a couple of times. They do have a free day. It's Wednesday, and I'd recommend going that day if you do go, so you don't spend a bunch of money on art museum. But let me tell you at the end of the show, if you remind me, about our free zoo, Gary. But that'll be at the end of the show if you want to hear about the free zoo.
We have a free zoo?
You got it, my man.
Okay.
But I got to tell you about that one. We'll save that one when we're out of the art discussion. I think another part of the feeling that it's art is you get that sense of flow. So yet again, I don't have a big 6-inch paintbrush to do these really precise paintings.
We know you don't have a 6-inch paintbrush, Byron. I've heard that from numerous people.
But if I'm more of a paint by a roller, Gary, how does that make sense?
I wouldn't say maybe a Tootsie roller.
So without a particular art equipment that would be useful, I don't really know what it's like to get caught up in the sense of flow while I'm painting. But I do know what it's like to be in the sense of flow while I'm rolling. And just what I mean flow is everything's working for you. You get your game going. There's better definitions of the word flow. There's probably another 4 or 5 definitions of those we can go with. But elite athletes, not me, maybe not even Gary, when they get in this, like, it's like, I guess another way to say it is a sense of zone. When they're in the zone, they're going to make the basket. When you're in the zone, he's going to complete the pass. When they're in the zone, he's going to ace that serve with the tennis paddle. So getting in the zone or having that sense of flow, you're not thinking about things, you're just doing things. Your body is trained. I think that artists may experience a similar sense of flow or zone-like mind, and it really helps them perform well, paint well, sculpt well. Gary's abs are sculpted, and this is got to be one of the stranger podcasts we've ever had, Gary.
Oh, definitely.
But you know what I mean? When you're in that sense of like things are going well, I'm not having to think a lot, but I'm really doing a very good job. I think that is kind of also in the area of either mastering your craft or getting that sense of art out of it.
Yeah, I think of somebody painting a picture, an artist painting, and it, when I see it, it seems like they're in a flow. They're moving great. Their picture's taking shape. They're just having fun, but they're kind of in that moment. They're not thinking about anything else. And every stroke of the paintbrush, they're painting wider swath and that pitcher's coming. And I think of that the same thing, like, when you're rolling, even if I'm not having the best day, it's kind of a quirky roll, but it's still, I kind of, even if it's, not that perfect flow, I still feel like an artist. When it's a little quirky, I kind of feel like a mad artist. Nothing's going perfect, but I'm still plugging along. I'm trying to find a path of least resistance. But the best is those days where you said, like, you're in a zone, everything's just flowing perfect. You're transitioning from move to move. If you do make a mistake, you're transitioning out of that submission, quickly into a good position. It just seems like it's a really technical roll when you're in that position. You could roll an hour with the same guy, and you're not sore the next day. Everything was so smooth and technical. It just makes it, you're transitioning from one to another. Everything's going great for both sides, and you're smiling, you're having a good time, and everything just connects together. It's but that's kind of what I think when I think of a artist in a painting a picture that's in a zone, and me in a zone in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So looking at another aspect of art, it would be paint by numbers, and you're learning to paint. Or maybe you're not learning. You just want to make this really cool picture, and some of those are pretty elaborate. But it says, number 7, and you go to number 7 color, and you paint that on there, right there, or connecting the dots and making a picture that way. And I don't know if you want to call those art or not. The creativity is definitely limited in those situations. So I think maybe, and I don't know for sure where everyone stands on this, but I guess probably no one would stand in the same place. But maybe at the beginning of your jiu-jitsu, when you're learning the fundamentals, you're enrolled in the beginning class. It's kind of like painting by numbers. Yeah, you're learning how to hold the brush. Gary talks about holding the brush. He holds a small brush, takes short strokes, and that's the way he likes to work it. But so you're learning the very basic idea of how to paint. With the bigger goal of learning how to paint, Bob Ross style, which is Gary's ultimate goal, or just to maintain and paint, by numbers and make those really cool pictures that are kind of pre-designed for you. You know what you're going to get. It's going to be cool. And just, looking at jiu-jitsu, making that comparison, paint by numbers would be like having, here's how you have to do the armbar from guard. Here's how to escape the mount. And yes, these are great skills to have. Yes, this is how Gary holds the brush. All these little details are important. But if you want to go on to do bigger and more interesting things, it's worthwhile doing. If you're at a place that offers a beginner's class, take it. If you move to a place, let's say you've got a couple of years and they offer a beginner class, hop in the beginner class if they're okay with that and see how they're teaching their fundamentals and beginning things, and you'll probably learn a few things and cool details that you missed over. And, that paint by numbers aspect, I'm kind of comparing that to like very basic jiu-jitsu. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do this. I think it's not a bad comparison. There's not a lot of creativity in that, but ultimately it could lead to creativity if you learn the fundamentals and work off that framework from there.
Yeah, definitely. It could lead to creativity. You build off of that. But I also think like that the paint by numbers and stuff like that, that's to get people introduced to art. Art gets your brain working. Your brain really has to work to create art. So just, to get you introduced is kind of like our audiobook, your first year in BJJ, is to introduce you to jiu-jitsu. And I do think that's kind of where the paint by numbers, it's a way to start, but, it's to introduce you and get you from there. It's just kind of like what our goal is to, introduce people to jiu-jitsu. We want you to try jiu-jitsu. Not everybody's going to like it, but, we're hoping that, more people stick with it. They're going to get out there and learn the basics and meet new people and have fun. And then, once you've been in there a little while, your creativity is going to take over.
So, Gary, this is a fun idea. I'm really enjoying this conversation about whether jiu-jitsu is an art. I guess we're kind of talking about how much of an art is it, versus other arts.
I think it's more like 37% art.
There you go. But the first definition of art pretty much nails jiu-jitsu. So I would argue that it's 58% art by my calculations, and ask Jeeves. But how would somebody make? Let's say somebody's got a couple years of experience. They've got the basics down. They're escaping correctly. They're passing the guard correctly. They're hitting their rear naked chokes, guillotines, and paintbrush submissions perfectly, the way they were taught. But they want to kind of make this their own thing. They want to add a little bit of their own, let's just say, if your name's
Flair.
Gary, your own Gary to this. How would somebody kind of explore their game and make it more of an art and less of here's how I'm painting by numbers?
I think they will find moves they like, moves that work great for their body. Let's just talk about, passing. You may have people who pass with speed. You have people who pass, tight and smash. And, let's just say that. Let's just say you become a smasher. Not everybody, plays that really tight, heavy game. But let's just say you're at a school that's more submission related. They're always, they may be a little looser because they're, trying to grab a submission every time. They're just hunting that submission where you're given a little space to move so you can grab that. You could, all of a sudden pass and turn it into a real heavy game. Really, that gut wrenching pressure, that pressure that just makes you want to quit, that takes your soul from you. You could turn that into your style. You could be very athletic, kind of like what we were talking about before, and pass with speed. Definitely not me. I'm slow as can be. I don't think I'll, outspeed anybody. But, I see a lot of people who, do passes, cartwheel passes, passes where they're standing on their head and turn their body to pass. And, that's kind of a, acrobatic style. And, I do see a lot of people, and that's not me either. It's not me. I wish I could do it. But I think you can put your own flair, as I'm saying, on your game, something that's just, unique to your game, to your style that fits you well.
I kind of going with that. You said, you get really good at something. And I think, just digging into that. Gary talked about soul-crushing power, or power that takes the soul. If he takes it like that, he'll dust it off and give it back to you, because that's art. It dusting that off there. But getting really good at something. Let's just say over/under pass. You're getting really good at it. You're spending a lot of time, and it's not really a smart move to spend 2 years doing an over/under pass if it's your first year and two. Like that shouldn't. You should have a little more exploration in your first couple of years. But let's say you've been training for 4 or 5 years, and you want to figure out which pass is perfect for you. Yeah, spend a year dedicated to if I'm going to pass a guard, it's going to be this way, and get really good at that. And at first it'll seem like paint by numbers, and then after that, if it seems like paint by numbers. And a little bit longer, still paint by numbers, but eventually you'll find little subtleties that you're going to change and do based on, I pass this way with 50 different people, and I know with this person, I have to change it slightly. And little details that you'll notice will eventually, out of what seemed like boring monotony of this pass you've mastered, you're going to notice things that it took you a long time to kind of discover about your pass and how to do it correctly. So this guy's kind of a little bit taller, so I have to do it slightly different this way. This guy's kind of got a belly, and so my angle is going to be a little bit different. I got to adjust it like this. And you just pick up these things that, yes, the fundamentals are the same, but you're adjusting some things. It might be very slight, but as the artist who's really mastering this particular pass, I think that you'll really pick up some details. And that's, you have to get past that point where the pass is boring, or the first struggle is the pass doesn't work. Then it works okay. Then it works pretty good. Then it works on everybody. Then it's boring, and then you kind of discover some things about it that it's boring because it's too effective. I hate to say it. Sometimes that's the way some moves get. Gary's Kimura. If he wants to Kimura me, he could do it. Like, there's not a big problem there. I think he's not Kimura me sometimes because he's looking for something more exciting and more fun to do.
Yeah, definitely. That is true like that. And I think that's one of the reasons, I started, getting into leg locks. When I first started, I didn't really care for leg locks. My instructor wasn't big on them, and I know leg locks have gotten bigger in the days, but I think I started doing leg locks even before the leg lock explosion. But I just found leg locks really fun. I did have a little time in jiu-jitsu where I wasn't having as much fun as I did when I first started. I felt like I was just going through the motions. Kind of reminded me of what you said earlier, Byron, about you said you feel sorry for people who are, working out or doing exercise and not having fun. And I did run into a time kind of early in my jiu-jitsu career where I wasn't having fun. I felt, I paid for it. I need to show up, but I wasn't having fun. And, I had to make some changes to get that spark back in. It's just like anything else. You got to find what's going to keep you going. I'm glad I didn't quit. It would have been easier just to quit. But, once I kept going, I found, a spark that kept me going. But, then all of a sudden, the moves, you get used to them and they're just not as fun as they used to be. And, as I tell you all the time, I'm here for fun in jiu-jitsu. But, then I started doing leg locks. And, I just loved the entries. I just loved, the nuances and the different positions, which were totally foreign to me. And leg locks really sparked an interest in me. And you really did feel like it's an art. A lot of the entries are from the bottom, so it's kind of looking like, maybe to the untrained eye that I don't have anything. I'm on the bottom, getting beat. But the next thing you know, I get a hook in, my leg shoots through and I've entangled a leg. I've entrapped a leg. And then I'm going to work. But, I really do think that really helped me and made it fun again. And I guess I think each position, each, set of positions, each, concept is kind of like an art in its own. And, you put it all together and you got one big masterpiece.
There you go, Gary. Man.
And this is a little deeper than I thought we'd get.
You're digging with that BjjBrick and making this very deep topic. But yeah, it's kind of fun to hear how you're explaining your game and how it's changed and some reasons why, and where you've gone with it. And parts of it are art, and some parts of it are not. I would say anything that I'm not good at. I guess Kimuras are. It's easy to say Gary's Kimuras are very good. Mine are very quite bad. So no part of my Kimura game would I consider to be artistic or art-like. It's just I'm just doing the paint by numbers Kimura, and really not even that good.
That's a good analogy. Yeah,
and it's true how bad my Kimuras are.
No, but I'm thinking of it like some of the positions I'm not very good at. I really probably am doing the paint by numbers. But the nice thing is, I think you mentioned it earlier that you're always learning in jiu-jitsu. Even up to you're a black belt, but. I think the same thing, the paint by numbers. We may not be the best at that move, and I know you talked about the over-under. It's probably not best earlier in your career to spend 2 years, mastering that. You got other stuff to work on. But, as we're, 15 years in our jiu-jitsu journey, it gives us something else that we can spend some time on and, get that up there, and get better at that move and maybe – turn that into an art craft. And, I'm thinking of Kimuras. And, I'd been doing Kimuras for a long time. It was a move that really made sense to me. But, I switched and I started really, going into leg locks. And I probably really worked on leg locks for a good year, straight. And then I switched back to Kimuras and you found some other little things that, I was getting a little bored with leg locks, and I switched back to Kimuras, and all of a sudden that spark comes back, and, you start exploring, new entries, new ways to do stuff, and, found some, cool things that, just took my Kimura game to a new level. And then, go back to leg locks, and then go back to, I started working on arming guillotines and, a whole bunch of different stuff. And, I keep changing my focus, but it keeps adding that spark. And each time I go back to something new, I'm trying to learn little nuances and trying to make stuff better. it's kind of like putting on a new coat of paint on your house. You got a pretty good house. You've got, mace, you got cement siding on it. You've got very good siding. That you put on some brand new Sherman-Williams paint that, makes it pop out in the whole neighborhood. But then after a couple years, it starts fading a little bit. So then you come back, you power wash it, maybe put a new coat of paint on it and get it rolling there. And that absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. But it sounded cool.
Well, you got to do some new form of painting. So we've talked about brushes, we talked about rollers, and now he's talking about a power spray type of a paint.
Well, what would you think power spraying is? And let's take a power sprayer. I would actually think of that as like the person who just learned so many moves, but they don't really, have anything down. They as we talked about it the other week, they got like 9 billion tools in their toolbox, but they're a master of none.
That's one way to think of it. I'm going to take it a different way and say that it is
we do know you take it a different way.
It is a high efficiency method of painting.
Oh, okay.
So if efficiency is what you're looking for, you want the power sprayer method. It may not be the most. You're not going to paint a beautiful painting with it like Gary would with his little brush that he's working on there. But if you want to get the job done, you got to paint the entire side of a house. You want to be efficient. That's how you're going to paint. Jiu-Jitsu, if you have to roll with 6 people today, submission only, no time limit, you're going to want to use that power sprayer method and be very efficient with what you're doing. And do it on a cloudy day. You don't want to be out there in the sun all day, but don't do it on a day that it rains. So there's a little bit of a risk with the cloud and working in with the shade. But here in Kansas, it is not cloudy all day, but sometimes the clouds are very nice to break you of the harsh rays of the sun. Man, it's getting weird over here, Gary.
It's definitely getting weird, and definitely make sure you get your skin checked and wear sunscreen.
There we go. I would like to hear how you guys think. Is Jiu-Jitsu an art? I mean, it's obviously a sport. It's obviously a martial art. Those are two simple things. It could be considered a craft, like you're going to master a craft, a skill. Is it an art? And yes or no, or, and if you're going to comment, Facebook is a great place to do this, or comment just on our website. There's a little section for comments that it'd be nice to get somebody to throw a comment on there and see if it actually works. But comment and see, just let us know your opinion, and maybe we'll learn something from you this time. We've definitely learned a lot from the audience, but it would make it kind of fun to extend the conversation to the listening audience and go there and get other people's opinions as well, because I'm sure a few people will comment and maybe they have some really cool stuff to say about whether Jiu-Jitsu is considered an art to them. If we have any artists in the crowd, so actually people who are into art, how do you feel? Are we disrespecting the arts? Are we not doing them justice? We're taking something away and kind of trying to claim it as ours, even though what we're doing clearly does not produce sellable art.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to hear from some people, especially artists. So definitely go to our Facebook page and let us know what you think.
There we go. That's going to be fun to get ripped apart by the audience. Gary, we ask for it sometimes. We also, we've been a while. We don't do it every time, but if you want to write us a review, make it a fun review. If you want to tease us a little bit, that's fun too. We appreciate the 5-star reviews most of all, but give us what you think we deserve. But if you write us a funny review, we'll read it on the podcast. And we've been reading them on the podcast, and you haven't heard any for a while because we don't ask for them. And, if you don't ask, the odds that you don't get them. So we definitely have some funny reviews that you'll be able to read while you're stopping by and dropping that review on iTunes or wherever it is that you like to listen to podcasts. Yeah, Gary, you feel satisfied with our art discussion?
Well, definitely I do feel satisfied. I basically, when you told me what we were doing this week, BJJ as an art, my blood pressure went up, my heart started racing, and I was like, I have no clue, what I'm going to talk about on this. And, I think we, dwelled into it a little bit, and, it did make sense, especially when you started talking about the different definitions of art. And I really only thought of it as one way. And, I definitely think it, did open my eyes a little bit there. But I have always felt that when I do roll, I always thought of myself as an artist. I've thought of myself as, I can express myself with my jiu-jitsu. And it's funny because I've played a lot of sports in my life, and Byron knows, my whole life used to be devoted to basketball, but I never really once thought of myself on the basketball court as an artist that I do in jiu-jitsu. So I don't know if it's just as I've gotten older, maybe I've got a little smarter and, my brain works a little bit differently. But, when I am on the mat, I do think of myself, not necessarily as a martial artist, but I think of an artist as I'm painting a picture. I'm showing the world myself through my movements. And, thinking back at it, we consider dance an art, and people express themselves through dance. I express myself through jiu-jitsu.
And dance. He wears the same Spanx and leotards in his no-gi as he does in his dance class.
Yeah. I think what we'll do on the website too, I'll have Byron post a video of myself and a couple of my buddies dancing.
I got that video. I put it on a Facebook page a long time ago of the dance like standing guard passes.
That's me. Yeah, that was the one I was talking about. So if you could just put that back up there, Byron, and say that's so everybody can see that's me. I'm the guy with the hat on.
I don't know if I'll be able to research that and find that video again. That's why you should go and like our Facebook page, because once something pops up like that, it may never be findable again. But I'll give it a look. Check your email box for the show notes, or check the website for the show notes, and you might see them there. I think the video might be on our YouTube channel as well. That should be easier to find, actually, now that I think about it. But you should follow us on social media. Follow our YouTube channel. We're almost up to I have the BjjBrick Q&A sessions almost to 20 by now, Gary. So that's coming right around the corner. So if you want more kind of talk about jiu-jitsu and learning, I've answered almost 20 questions from listeners like you guys out there that have just typically they just send me a question. I'm like, I email them back, hey, you mind if I answer this on the video format? And I'll put just the first name and answer it there for everybody. So that is a great way to kind of keep with us via social medias.
Yeah, the social medias, the interwebs.
But Gary, you never feel like you're an artist while you're shooting hoopers and making baskets over there.
I guess I never really did. I guess I was probably talking so much trash that I never really thought about it.
But you talk a lot of trash. But
I look at, basketball too. It really is an art. Guys with great crossovers, awesome passes. I see Steph Curry out there, shooting jumpers, and, it's just beautiful just watching that arc, of his jump shot and, watching it rain. So basketball is an art. I guess I never really, I guess when I was younger and played all the time, I didn't think about it. And for some reason, jiu-jitsu, forced me down, that path, where I started thinking about it as art. I adapted my own game. But, oh well.
What do jiu-jitsu and basketball have in common? Awesome passes, Gary.
Yep, awesome passes and the benefits. I mean, it's making us more healthy. A lot of friendships. The social aspect, and you can read about all the benefits in Byron's audiobook, Your First Year of BJJ. I got another one in there, buddy.
Yes, you did. I'm impressed.
Yep. Hey, check out Patreon. We have a link to it on the show notes. Patreon is a website for content producers or artists, if you may. But Patreon is where you can show support for our podcast. Our podcast costs us a little bit of money, and keep producing a show every week, we need a little bit of support. So definitely check it out. And if you do become one of our Patreon supporters, you get some awesome stuff like a gi patch, which we'll send to you. You get a BJJ sticker that you can put on your neighbor's house, just to so they'll enjoy that. And you get to join the private Facebook group. So definitely check it out. Patreon, we have a link to it on our show notes. And want to thank each and every one of our Patreon supporters, because without you guys, we couldn't keep this show going. So thank you.
Yep. And if you think that, everybody's doing that, actually not everybody's doing that. It's not even 1% of the listening audience is supporting us on Patreon. So each one of you guys that does sign up, and I think it's averaging less than one new Patreon person a month. So it is a big deal. If you want to help us out and support the show, check out the link in the show notes or on our website. And thanks for doing that. It really means a lot to us.
Yep. Another way to support the show is check out Byron's audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. We have a link to it on the show notes.
Speaking of my audiobook, Gary's got an audiobook coming out.
Oh, good transition.
Yeah, I could have done that anytime during the show because you've been talking about audiobooks the whole time. So what happens with Gary's audiobook is I throw him a title, and he doesn't know what the title's going to be. Really kind of comes at him at a surprise, and he's got to make up an entire book based on this title. And I'm just going to throw this one out here. Rolling with Bob Ross, Increase Your Artistic Jiu-Jitsu. Isn't that a happy little guard there? So, Gary, it's kind of an odd book title, and I picture maybe it's got you with an afro and a little paint set there with some canvas, and you're really just going to make it a little happy jiu-jitsu painting, or maybe roll with him, or I don't know if he's rolling other things other than jiu-jitsu. I don't know what's going on here, Gary. What is the idea behind this terrible audiobook that you're producing?
Oh, why is it going to be a terrible audiobook?
It's just got to be good.
I know it's nothing like your audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. But, this audiobook, like you said, Bob Ross, the guy with an afro, the guy can paint like you would not believe. The guy is skilled. But what we're going to do is we're going to do some jiu-jitsu on canvas. We're going to roll old school. We don't need mats. We're going to be on canvas. And we're going to have a paintbrush in our hands. So what we're going to do is when we're rolling, we are going to draw art on that canvas while we're rolling. And a lot of times, you may only go 5 minutes before you get tired, or, 10 or 15. But my goal is, like, Bob wants to paint what he wants to do, but I want Bob to paint what I want. So my goal is to attack his arms, to control his limbs, and make him paint what I want to paint. It's kind of like Byron's other audiobook, 6 Games for BJJ. This game is I have to be such good at a move that I can use the other person's limbs and make them paint for me. Like, I can overpower him. I can put him in such bad positions. I can have his arm twisted where he has no strength, and I can, have some broad strokes and paint that canvas.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's it challenges your mind. It challenges your physical attributes, and basically when you're done, you may have an afro.
Gary, this is the one time Gary gets to work with somebody who's able to paint with broad strokes because they're holding the brush, and he's really working off of their brush, so he's able to use broader strokes. And I'm thinking about jiu-jitsu. What would be a good position to actually, if somebody's holding a brush and you're trying to force them to paint a happy little tree and a happy little mountain over here, I would say, thinking about it, the paintbrush submission, otherwise known as the Americana. That would be a good way to kind of force that hand across the canvas of the canvas and paint something.
Yes, definitely, Byron. That is a good way to do it. You have learned very well.
What is the worst position to try to get somebody to paint something?
I would think when somebody has full mount on me and they have me in an armbar. They go for an armbar full mount. That doesn't work very well. But another one I like to use is, the head and arm choke. And, while their arms, totally sideways, I'll turn them to the side a little bit. And that's always a good one to make them paint. So that works pretty good. Another one, especially if you have an afro, I can throw a brush into your hair and get you in a guillotine. And while your head's down there, I can, paint that way too. So, that's chapter 2. But, so there's a lot of good ways to do that.
A lot of it's going to depend on your opponent's haircut. And, Gary and I really don't have very good haircuts. So hopefully you're grappling against opponents that have, nice thick afro or a thick set of hair. I don't fit into that category anymore.
No, well, actually never. But, you could try.
I could try.
You should grow it out, Byron.
Well, thank you, Gary. I'll consider it, but I just don't like having it. With jiu-jitsu, longer hair. And my hair used to be really kind of thick and not really that good. I like short hair. It's easy to clean. It doesn't get in anybody's face, and I don't have to keep it. I'm never gonna have long to put it like up or to hold it back. I just have like a sweaty mop, and that's not my style.
Well, speaking of that, the other thing, the sweaty mop, I could use your head.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Dip it in.
So
pick me up, dip my entire head in some paint, and then just start painting on that canvas.
Yeah, and then when we're done, we just put the canvas up on the wall at the academy. So,
a lot of times, Gary is so sweaty that you look down and there's like a sweat angel. One time, and it's really sad because it only lasted for just a few minutes. He really painted something he was playing like half guard, kind of at a weird angle. The guy was trying to pass standing up, and kind of a weird situation of the whole thing. And he had a semi-Kimura locked on, and that guy was trying to wrist lock him, and it was really weird. He looked down, and it was like the Mona Lisa was painted in Gary's sweat. And she kind of, was she smiling or not, I don't know. But it was really a fascinating work of art. And, in 2-3 minutes, most of it had evaporated away. Within an hour, even the deeper puddles that Gary had caused were almost gone. But,
well, see, that's because of those disappearing puddles of sweat. Basically, the epilogue of this audio book, I have a secret technique so you don't lose, the sweat angels and the Mona Lisas that you create with sweat. Before you roll, eat a whole bunch of food coloring, and that'll come out in your sweat, and it'll stick to the canvas. So pretty good technique and pretty good idea. So, that's definitely worth the price of the audiobook right there.
Yep, drinking that red dye number 5 or whatever the bad one was. Well, that'll be an interesting audiobook. Gary, let's get to our article of the week with our friend Joe.
Let's call Joe up.
Hey guys, it's Joe Thomas on the BjjBrick with Gary and Byron to discuss the article of the week. And this week we're discussing the article, Can a Coach Roll Too Much with the Students? And this was written by our very own Byron. So Byron, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, this is Joe is the lead article writer for the website.
He's our expert.
Yeah, he could make a very nice article look like it's easy to do. It is not easy to write a nice article, but this was my efforts. And, having the opportunity to kind of step out, like if I could roll tonight 5 rounds, I roll 5 rounds. And for some reason or another, I was sitting out around, and it may detail it more in the article. I don't remember. But, and I learned a lot by watching. I was learning who's rolling too aggressively with the new people, who's bringing their A game to everyone that they roll with, and maybe they should back that down a little bit. Who's rolling really well with other people that surprised me, and give a little coaching advice, and look around and see what mistakes I see that I don't even realize. I learned a lot from just sitting out a couple of rounds and watching the students. And I think that my current method, or a recently passed method of rolling as much as I can with as many people as I can, that's a lot of fun, and that it is helpful for the students. But sitting out a little bit and observing, 5% of the time, maybe 10% of the time, and just watching how the class is going. Keeping an eye on the guy who just walked into the door and he weighs 250 pounds and he's looking to kill somebody. Just kind of taking a step back. I think there's a lot of value in that I had been missing, my basically up until now. And I still find myself, I wrote this article in early August. It's still hard to sit out a round or two. It's just so much more fun to get in there and roll. But it is something that I recognize as a valuable thing. And I think I personally roll too much with the students, and I need to sit out and watch a little bit more.
Byron, I think about when we first started Jiu-Jitsu. Just so everybody knows, I've been training Jiu-Jitsu about 2 weeks longer than Byron. Not that that makes me better than Byron, but in my mind it does. But we had a instructor when we first started. How long ago was that, Byron? 14 years ago, maybe?
2002, April-ish,
So
May-ish. 15
years ago. Okay, 15 years ago. Our instructor did not roll very often. He would always watch us, and I kind of liked it during my roll, especially when I was first starting. I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, I come from a basketball background where we don't do a lot of groundwork in basketball. Actually, no groundwork in basketball. But I really didn't know what I was doing. I would drill and I'd learn the new moves, but it really helped me a lot. I think it made me progress a little bit faster than I probably would have with him kind of coaching me. He'd walk around the room and he would coach people. He still rolled, but what would you say you probably rolled, Byron? Maybe 20% of the time and watched 80% of the time?
Well, and each person's situation is different, but our first coach, he ended up having back problems, and he really had the passion for jiu-jitsu, but for him to perform at a consistent basis was difficult. But we got a lot of mat time with him early on, and it kind of faded due to just pain, I guess.
Yeah, but I think it really did help me. And with him, he would coach me as I was rolling. Drilling was one thing against a non-resisting opponent, but once we got, going 100%, and back in those days, I only went 100 or 120%. I didn't know any better, but it really helped me. He'd tell me to, hey, watch where your hands are at, shrimp, and it was a very, very good coaching.
Yeah, Joe, if you step aside and kind of watch people, do you learn some stuff? Are you seeing things that people could do differently? What are your impressions of taking a round off every now and then?
Well, first of all, I'm not a coach or an instructor. And second of all, I'm 50 years old, so I end up taking a few rounds off. But I enjoy watching, and usually from my perspective, I'm watching the lesser skilled of two guys grappling if I'm watching and offering advice to that person. I try not to get out of my lane and giving advice to other purple belts and brown belts and whatnot, but I certainly see the value in it. I really appreciate, Byron, you pointing out that gives the instructor a little bit of time to monitor the culture of the gym and look for any problems. So that's a really good point. Sounds like it's a bit of a sacrifice for a coach to make, though. You only get so much time to train. And
yeah, and the other idea that people worry about is that the coach doesn't roll with the students. And this is not, I'm not talking about that situation. I'm talking about a coach taking a round or two off to observe the students. Like, if you think about other sports, coaches aren't actively doing the sports with the athletes. They're watching, making changes, talking to the students, showing them the way they want it done. But jiu-jitsu is wonderful that coaches can do jiu-jitsu, and a lot of times they're doing it better than the athletes themselves. And I think that speaks a lot about jiu-jitsu.
Byron, tell me if you agree with this or if you've seen this happen. I think one of the challenges is jiu-jitsu is a rare activity where the instructor is almost expected to be the best athlete in the room. Unfortunately, when guys go looking for new schools, they want to see the instructor being able to dominate. Maybe that's a mindset or something that we need to get past as jiu-jitsu consumers when we're looking for schools.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I think if you look at just another martial art like boxing, you don't need the best. The person who hits you the hardest to be your coach. You need the person who's going to tell you how to box and tell you about head movement and correct what you're doing wrong. But in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times, kind of like the proof is in the pudding sometimes with your coach. It's like, yeah, they're really good. But I see people all the time who technically aren't as good at jiu-jitsu as me. Like, I could tap them out with this or with that, but they know a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of value in them as instructors on the mat and as coaches. So it's just hard to quantify how good somebody actually is at jiu-jitsu, and it's hard for a new person to come in and get a good sense of how good a coach is, because your coach, a black belt, can tap you out 5 to 10 times in 5 minutes, and so could a lot of the purple belts on the mat. You really can't judge that as far as how good they are. It's not to say that purple belt roll with that black belt and does the same thing to them. I think is an easy way. But do you really need the best athlete to teach you? I think not. You need somebody who's good at explaining things and somebody who is good at communicating these techniques in a way that you could learn and remember them.
Joe, I do think you make a good point, though. It seems like that is, from what I've seen most of the time, is everybody does expect the the coach to wreck everybody if it comes down to it. And, I don't think that necessarily, in my opinion, makes the best coach. I think it'd be great to, train under, the best people, the Keenan Corneliuses and everybody. And I know they can wreck anybody. They're better than everybody. And I know those guys are good coaches, but I'm now at the point in my life where I'm looking to see how somebody coaches, how the gym is run. Kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Joe, about, as the instructor taking a round off to look for, mat bullies or making sure everybody's okay. And maybe that just comes with age. I'm with Joe. I'm 50 years old also, so I'm taking a round or two off every now and then. But, I have changed, the way I look at my jiu-jitsu. I just look at it as a lifelong art, a hobby, way of life, something that I just love doing. But now I look at longevity. I'm not looking to be the biggest, baddest dude in Wichita, Kansas. I'm looking to train safe. I'm looking to, train my heart. I'm looking to get a little more flexible and have fun and meet a bunch of cool people. So for me, it's not looking for the biggest, baddest instructor, but I do feel that is what a lot of people do look for.
Yeah, and then that in turn puts the pressure on the instructors to maybe not take rounds off, but just keep working on their skills better and better.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And, a lot of times too, I think, Byron, you bring up, you talk about the spectrum of sports and, you watch the Kansas City Chiefs play or the Houston Texans and, you don't see their coach out there with pads on. But in jiu-jitsu, you're going to see your coach out there. He's, getting ready for the Masters Worlds or, he's got a fight with Bellator coming up. So I think it is a little different in our sport where our instructors are, still training. We have or still competing versus a lot of the pro football coaches, basketball coaches, that, played back in the day, but now they're, older and probably don't want to take a beating anymore. But they do know their stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess the comparison would be with the wrestling coaches. A lot of those older guys who have wrestled and that now are coaching, they get their hands on you. You feel it, that they have that strength in their hands and they have that coordination and that mat strength behind their movements. And I think in jiu-jitsu, as coaches, we can do this. And it's fun, it's enjoyable. If you're a football coach and you enjoyed playing your football for 5-10 years or whatever your span was, it's probably not wise to go out there, run as fast as you can, and slam into somebody. And plus, you can't run very fast. That ability fades as well. But it's just not healthy. But in jiu-jitsu, that's part of the beauty of the sport and the martial art is that you could do this as you get older, and you could do this competitively. You don't have to compete, but you could roll hard with people who are good at jiu-jitsu and have not easy-going rounds necessarily, and get a lot out of that. So I think I've taken us off a little bit, but basically, this article has kind of, and I put a little video with it to kind of explain myself a little better. I don't know if I explain myself very well in the written format, so I threw a video up there. It's titled "A Mistake I've Been Making as a BJJ Coach." I'm not a full-time coach. I help out at Fox Fitness where I like to train, and if anybody anywhere has a question for me, I'm happy to try to help out and coach them a little bit on the side as well. But it's just something that I've noticed. It's probably not smart for me to never watch students roll. I was watching actually a lighter weight, fairly advanced person just kind of trash a bigger white belt. I'm like, why is he doing this? I couldn't. The ability is there, but this white belt was so clueless. So I kind of reined him in a little bit. You don't need to be going that hard against this person. It doesn't make sense for either one of you. You're definitely not helping him out. And from when I roll with both these guys, I would have never known that was happening. And same with some of the mistakes. Sometimes the basic mistakes these people are doing, they don't do those mistakes to me because I may not be given the opportunity for those to come up. But when you see two people rolling, you see an escape attempt that is clearly not valid. It's like, I see more of that when it's not against me, because I don't know, maybe maybe I'm just watching a little bit better, but it's like, okay, we need to work on side control escapes, or we need to work on back escapes and really help out. This is maybe somewhere we take the curriculum further down the road.
Byron, I can tell you, you did that to me a lot, when I first started. I know you just said you're not a full-time instructor, but to be honest, you have really influenced my game and helped me a lot in my game. Even though I did start, as I mentioned, either this show or last show, a couple weeks earlier than you progressed and you figured it out, a lot quicker than I did. And, you were, light years ahead of me. And you helped me a lot of times. And situations like that, you're talking about watching, I can think back to one time, whenever somebody started, behind us, which rarely ever happened, back in the day, it seemed like nobody knew would ever come to the gym. And so like me and Byron were kind of the bottom guys for a while. Well, I was the bottom guy because Byron was tooling me. But I remember we got some other people coming in and I was like, okay, cool. Now maybe I can finally tap somebody out. And still wasn't working. But I remember using can openers to pass people out. And you're talking 6 months, 8 months in. And I remember you taking me to side, kind of like what you were talking about, that higher level person just throttling that guy. And you took me to the side and you're like, Gary, what are you doing? That's you're using can openers. And I was like, yeah, I watched Mark Kerr do it on the UFC. And you're like, hey, use technique. You're going to get better. And I remember that sticking out. I really do. You were always a person who's not afraid to say something. I mean, you helped me a lot on your game. And I know you just said you don't consider yourself a full-time teacher, but you've really taught me and influenced my game. Well,
and you have reciprocated as much as it goes in jiu-jitsu. You help somebody and they'll help you further down the road. And yeah.
Yep. So I can't wait to can opener you.
Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, what's up, Joe?
It's semi-related. I hope it's not too far off the topic.
No, that's good.
As an instructor and somebody that's been rolling 15 years, when you roll with, let's say, blue belt, purple belts, and then you watch them roll with other people, do you get the impression that more often they roll really cautiously with you, like any mistake I make is going to be horrible, so I'm just going to keep a really tight game? Or do you have one of those blue and purple belts come at you like a wounded cougar, like one of these days I'm going to get Byron and today might be the day?
I think it's more of a reflection on me than on the students, but I don't typically get a lot of those trying to murder me rolls because all of the students I roll with have had me in mount. They've had me in side control. It's not a big deal. I remember earlier on rolling with a guy who's a blue belt, and I've never been in mount this guy. Like, I rolled him for years. I never obtained mount. It just didn't happen. And it was like, if I can just get to mount, I can try to do something to this guy. And I don't get that because they've all taken my back. It's not that big a deal. And they've all also worked their escapes on me as well. So I think maybe it's a little less intense as far as trying to catch me. But I do feel it occasionally, like side control is different than side control with my arms out of position, or they're on my back and my chin's up a little too high. Those are two different positions. And sometimes when I'm in one of those and I'm kind of in the bad end, maybe my arms out of position, I feel like, okay, that's got a little bit more intense. Like they're going for something pretty big here. I need to hurry up and get out of here, or I'm going to get caught. And sometimes you do get caught. It's not that big a deal. It's just slap hands. Hey, good job on that one, and be happy that someone's gotten to be that level or gotten to kind of grow and you've watched that happen. But yeah, I think it's less about the people and more about just the relationship that I have with the people I'm rolling with.
Yeah, good point. Nice.
Oh, I like the question. That was kind of fun.
Well, Byron, we appreciate you writing an article and coming on to this podcast with Joe and I and talking to us about it. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Maybe, I know we're going to have Joe back next week. Most likely one of Joe's articles, a very slight chance that it'll be Gary's first ever article, but we're hoping someday Gary writes an article.
I have to learn how to write first.
That's why you always do audiobooks, my friend.
Yeah, good point. Good point. But definitely make sure you tune in next week because we are going to have Joe on here again. and talking about another article.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you then.
Yeah, it's always fun getting Joe on here to do the article with us, and he'll be on here again next week, and just kind of expanding the podcast. And happy to have Joe on here when we can. Gary, I mentioned a little bit earlier about the free zoo. Most people aren't actually from Wichita that are listening to the audience, so they don't know. Technically, we don't have a free zoo here in Wichita.
No, we don't.
We have a pay-for-admission type of zoo, and when I was dating my wife, maybe on the third or fourth date, I offered to take her to the free zoo. And she's similar to what you did, reacted as, didn't know we had a free zoo, but that's a good idea for a date. And so got in my very nice Toyota Corolla and headed off, and we ended up in the pet store. And it took her a minute, but as I'm looking at the lizards, explaining which one could walk on the walls, and look at the snake over here, and showed her the hamsters. Eventually, it kind of clicked that not only are we at the zoo, or not only are we at the pet store, but I have taken her to what I consider to be the free zoo. And this was kind of a test to see, is this woman I'm dating willing to kind of put up with me as I'm being silly and stupid and trying to have fun? And she thought it was kind of a funny little joke I played on her. Offered to take her to the free zoo, show up at the pet store, and look at the animals for about 10 minutes and then get the heck out of there. And so, we want to have fun with our jiu-jitsu. You go to a gym, if everybody's grumpy and stressed and not having a good time, it's kind of like that third date, it's like, well, the free zoo, she did not have fun at all at the free zoo. She got mad at me for wasting her time. If that was the case, probably wouldn't have been another date. But she thought it was kind of a funny joke and ended up marrying that woman. So I took her to the free zoo. At the time, it was a bit of a risk.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I remember the first time, Byron and I, one time, we decided to go to the zoo.
Oh, boy.
And, we get to the zoo, and man, this zoo was weird. There was only one animal, and it was a dog.
Yeah? What kind of a dog would they have at the zoo, Gary?
They just had a dog at the zoo. So, I look at Byron, and we kind of shake our heads, and Byron said to me, "It's a Shih Tzu."
We're getting to tell one bad joke every episode. Yes, that dog. That zoo. Okay, good times. Well, man, this has been a fun episode. What do we have next week?
Next week, we have Crystal Demopoulos. She's going to be on the show. She basically, you might know her from EBI. She's competed in EBI. It's going to be an awesome show. Do not miss Crystal next week.
Yep, it's a good time catching up with it, getting to know Crystal during the interview, and some things that might surprise you during the interview. So a lot of fun talking to Crystal. That'll be next week.
Make sure you tell your friends, and if you happen to come through Wichita, Kansas, send us a line, hit us up on Facebook or BjjBrick@gmail.com, and we'd love to train with you.
Yep, we don't have a free zoo, but we will train with you.
We do have a Shih Tzu. Actually, no. I have a Lab Chow.
I have a red healer that has 3 legs.
There you go.
Yep, she's missing one of her back legs.
Doesn't have 3 legs because she rolled with me.
That's true. He did not heel hook this dog in. But, yeah, anyway, catch you guys next week.
Stay sweaty, my friends.
And shower and throw in a little bit of art into your jiu-jitsu.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.